a couple of weeks ago, I shared with you how I got to go on a trip with my dad, and it was a really fun time, and no one has really asked me about it. So I'm going to tell you about it, because I have about a half hour to do that. So here we go. So I got to go on this trip with my dad. It's the first time me and my dad ever got to go and just go with ourselves, and it was my dad, me, my uncle, and my uncle's friend, who was a principal. So that was really good because I never got along with principals. I got along with this guy. So that was pretty good. So we went, and there was an extra room, so I brought Marika and the kids around too, so they got to have a good time as well. But what it was is it was a 4-day intensive handgun training. It was about 8+ hours, depending on the day. Some day we got there every day by 6:30, and we stayed until, depending on the day, till 7 o'clock at night. And so it was a good time. Most of that time was on the range and just going through different shooting things. And I really enjoyed the whole time. One of the things, though, that as I was there was people from all different types of experience level. People that had been shooting since they were, yay high, and now they're in their 60s. And then you had people that had never even touched a gun out there shooting. I met a guy named Greg from Salome. This is a really interesting guy. And so, but it was a really good time. There was this family of 4, a dad, a mom, and 2 sons. The sons were about, 12 and 15, 12, 13, 15, 16, somewhere in there. It was about their ages. And the dad kind of knew what he was doing, right? He kind of had an idea. He'd probably been shooting for a little bit. But the mom and the 2 sons, I don't think they've ever seen a gun. And so after the first day, I wasn't near them. It went me, my uncle, and then the mom and one of the sons, and then the dad and one of the sons. I'm glad I was right there and I had a barrier between them because I thought they were going to shoot someone. I mean, it was scary at times how bad it was. But what was fantastic, by the 4th day, these guys when they were shooting, they were shooting everywhere, mostly not the target. And by the 4th day, they had these great groupings. And I was really floored. I'm like, wow, they've improved a lot. And in fact, in the last day, we had this little competition. It was everyone was paired up, and you got to do these little shooting things. You got to shoot against them in time. You had 3 targets, all metal targets. The first one was a person with a bad guy, right? Had a hostage and a bad guy. And then that was about 7 yards away. Then about 15 yards away, you had 2 big targets that you had to shoot. Each person had their own 3. So they got up there, and both the boys made it to the second round. They both hit their bad guys, and they both hit the other 2 before the other person got theirs. And I was just really impressed. And even though I didn't talk to them at all, I was excited that they were able to accomplish what they accomplished. I was happy. I'm like, man, if they can do it, anyone can do it. So next year I'm bringing Marika. And so she's going to do it, and my mom's going to do it. And I'm like, hey, if those people can do it, I know Marika did it. In fact, I took Marika out on Friday. She's a better shot than I am. So don't mess with Marika. But I'm like, man, I was excited. And for me, I love coaching. I love working with people to get them to a point where it's like, man, they were really bad, and then they broke through, right? They broke through something. When I was over here at the Scholars, when it was open, I was coaching over there. I loved going in and taking these young guys and helping them through, especially the ones that they thought they knew everything. And then they got to a point where they're like, yeah, I'm the best I can be. And really, when we started working with them, the reason why they thought they were the best that they could be is because they had hit a wall. And they thought, that's as best as I can be. And I loved helping them get through to the point where they got through and they go, wow, I didn't realize I could be this much better. And I really like that because it's so exciting to see people grow and develop and to be there a part of it. And with this family, I wasn't even with them, but I'm like, man, I'm excited that they did so well. And so, and if you're wondering how I did, I grazed the victim, and they disqualified me. But technically, no one beat me because the other guy did the exact same thing. So I didn't lose that. So if you know that. But today we're going to be in Mark chapter 7, verse 24. So if you have your Bibles, that's where we're going to be today. And I didn't set anything up, Carol. I'm sorry. Carol's looking at me like, what's going on? And so we're going to be in Mark chapter 7. And as we're getting into this, on your papers, if you came in, you got a bulletin, and on the papers, there's these little timeline. See, this timeline's really important because it's not working. It's not working. Because in order to understand where we're going to today, we need to understand the timeline as it progresses. Okay? Because what we're going to see today is we're going to see a breakthrough. We're going to see a breakthrough and an understanding of who Jesus is. But in order to stand where we're going to end up, we have to understand where we've been. So this timeline starts out with Herod. So Herod, we talked about a few weeks ago, about several weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago, about how Herod, this whole passage with Herod is really out of the blue. It's an out of the blue passage because right before this, Jesus sends out the disciples. And so Jesus sends out the disciples, and then we get this Herod passage where Herod hears about Jesus and then thinks it's someone else, and we learned about John the Baptist and how he dies. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But as we talked about how the message had been sent out, right? The disciples were sent out. Then the very thing we learn is Herod heard about Jesus, but then he thought it was John. And so we talked about how Herod missed the point. Herod missed the point of who Jesus was. And so we talked about how we can sometimes do that too. How can we sometimes miss the point of who Jesus is? But then from Herod, we go to the disciples and the return of the disciples. Disciples coming back, and as they're coming back, they're excited. They want to talk to Jesus, but there's so many people that they have to get away. They have to go, and so they leave on a boat, and they're so focused, the disciples are so focused on where they're going that they miss an opportunity to be refreshed with Jesus on the boat. And so we talked about how we in our lives need to have these little mini refreshments, that we need to take advantage of those times when we can be refreshed by God. Okay? But the disciples missed it. So far we have Herod missing something. We have the disciples missing something. Then we get into the 5,000, the feeding of the 5,000. What's interesting about that situation is Jesus tells the disciples, you feed them. And they say, we can't. We don't have the resources. We can't, whatever it is, we don't have. We can't feed them. And so you have them missing their opportunity to do a miracle. And so we have Herod missing it. We have the disciples missing two things. And then they get sent off. The disciples get sent off. So now they miss a second refreshment because Jesus goes up on a hill and he's refreshed by God. And so the disciples head out and they start struggling. They start struggling. They have that internal struggle. They've been dismissed. They've been sent away. They're being embarrassed. They're off onto the sea. And they're fighting against the waves, and we can see that they're fighting themselves at the same time. Jesus sees them, and it says that he walks out, and it says that he means to pass them. He means to leave them in their struggle. And yet, as soon as they cry out to him, he comes. And so we talked about how in our struggle, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if we're embarrassed, doesn't matter if we're in sin, if we cry out, God is going to be there. And we have to recognize that. But then last week, we finally come to this last part, to the Pharisees. And the Pharisees were challenging Jesus about, your disciples are not washing properly before they eat. And so really what it all boiled down to was they were taking the commands of God and they were adding on to them. They were convoluting them. They were making it actually easier to disobey God, and that was Jesus' point. Is they were adding so much on, which meant that you could actually disobey God and actually feel good about it. And so we talked about how sometimes we do this. We try to add more stuff on, and then we go, oh, well, if I add more stuff here and I do that, then I can feel better about myself. And the reality is that God wants us to keep his commands simple so that we follow that so we can deal with the inner struggle that the disciples did. And so we talked all about that, but through all of it, I want us to just walk away with this. Herod missed something, right? The disciples were missing things, and the Pharisees were missing things. 3 groups were missing something. Okay, because that's important. We're going to come back to that. So let's get into the verse, into the passage. We're in Mark chapter 7, verse 24. Here we go. Jesus left that place, okay, that place with the Pharisees, and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she replied, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. And he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Now, this is one of my favorite passages in Scripture. The reason why is because it's both confusing and enlightening. So let's go through it. So Jesus leaves the area of the Pharisees, right? So all this is still there. Herod missed, disciples missed, Pharisees missed, right? Okay, let's keep that in our mind. Jesus leaves, and it says he goes to this place called Tyre. Okay, it's a Gentile area. That's important, right? Remember that. Tyre is a Gentile area. Okay, let's move on. The next thing it tells us is that he tries to keep his presence there secret. Okay, that means that he doesn't want anyone to know. Okay, make a note of that. Gentile place, he's in secret. Okay, but it doesn't work out that way. Because a Gentile woman, okay, comes to him and she's begging him for her daughter. And Jesus says, it's not right for the children to basically eat before the dogs. And she replies, yes, but even the dogs get the crumbs. And so you have this little interaction. You can call it a confrontation. You can call it a conversation, whatever you want to call it. There's this interaction. So let's go again at the beginning. Jesus goes to Tyre, and it's a Gentile area. Why does he go to a Gentile area? So it can be secret, right? That's the reason it says. He says that he goes there because it's secret. Why? Because he's well known. At this point, he has fed 5,000. He's raised people from the dead. He's healed all manner of sickness. He's cast out demons. He's taken the Pharisees down a peg. He is a national icon right now. He can't go anywhere. You think, where did Elvis go to get away? He didn't go to the local grocery store, right? If you're a celebrity, you don't go to the local thing because people are going to know you. I always hear complaints from stars that, man, I go out and people just want to take pictures of me. Well, yeah, because you're famous. And so Jesus is going around and people keep coming to him wherever he goes. So where does he go to get away? Well, somewhere a Jewish man could get away to a Gentile area. Hopefully they won't care. Hopefully they won't mess with me, right? But he does this, and he takes his disciples with him. So he's taking them away. It's almost like these guys are not getting it, right? Because they keep missing things. And so it's like, I need to take you guys away. Okay? I need to take you to this secret place, to be in secret, so I can get some one-on-one or 1-on-12, right? Some 1-on-12 training in this quiet area. And so we see this whole little thing, but then a wrench gets thrown into the machinery. A woman shows up. She found out about Jesus. She's heard about Jesus. So she shows up. And if we miss some of the words that are used here, we missed a lot of the emotion. How does she come to Jesus? Does she throw open the door and go, Jesus, I am so-and-so, you need to heal my daughter? Does she do that? No, it says she comes in begging. She comes begging. Now, if you've ever had a child that's in pain, what would you do for that child? You know, I'm probably really not a good person. My wife is 10 times the person I am. Because when our kids get sick, I'm like, they'll get over it. You know, go to bed, I don't care. And my wife's like, no, I'm going to stay up with them. I'm going to, sit with them until they fall asleep. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock. It's bedtime. But here she comes. This woman comes begging for her child. And you would think, Jesus, God, he is compassionate, right? In fact, a few chapters earlier, it says Jesus had compassion over 5,000, that they were hungry, and he had compassion over them. But his response to the lady here doesn't seem very compassionate. Listen to what he says. First, let the children eat all they want, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Do you realize what he just called her? What did he just call her? A dog. Here's a begging mother, and he calls her a dog. Where's the compassionate Jesus? Is Jesus' compassion limited to people being hungry? Is that why we have potlucks? Because this is a compassionate time? Here, Jesus looks like he's just rude, right? Let's rewind again. Herod missed it. The disciples missed it. The Pharisees missed it. Do you realize who those people that missed it were? They were all Jews. Herod's not the best Jew, but he's still a Jew. The Pharisees, they're trying to be the best Jews. They're trying to do their best. They're missing the point, but they're trying to do their best. The disciples are hanging out with God. They're all missing it. I could just see Jesus, he's like, we got to get away. We got to do this. Because Jesus knows the end result. He knows that where he's going. He knows he's going to the cross. He knows he's going to die. He's going to return to heaven. And he knows that these guys are the ones that are going to go out into the world and spread the message. And so he knows, I got to get these guys trained. They got to get this. And so he goes away to a place where he can be alone with them in secret. And now here comes this woman, this Gentile woman, someone who should not get it. And I love her response, because in her response, we have a breakthrough. Okay? What's her response? Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. You know what she just did? She just owned what Jesus called her. He said the dogs, right? I don't think Jesus is trying to be rude here. I think really he's just being straightforward. Look, lady, I feel for you. But I've come for these guys, for the children of Israel, to fulfill a promise that I made to them thousands of years ago. This is why I'm here. This is the job I have to get done. And he's being straightforward with her. And he's using this very simple analogy. children and dogs. Because we can all picture that, right? Has anyone not had a dog that wanted food? And you're like, get away. At our house, we have 2 dogs. One of them, his head is above the table. And he knows which side of the table to go on. It's not my side. It's the children's side to get those crumbs. And so Jesus is using this very simple analogy. Yeah, the woman's the dog in this situation, but I don't think he's trying to say, look, lady, you're worthless. What I think he's trying to get at is, look, there's a priority here. This is my priority. The children of Israel are my priority. But I love how she understands who Jesus is. She gets it. She understands better than Herod did, better than the disciples did, better than the Pharisees did, of who Jesus is. Because she goes to him and she says, Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. And I want to share with you the way Matthew writes this, okay? Matthew writes it like this. A Canaanite woman from the vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. You realize what she's just called Jesus? He is the Messiah. She recognizes, this Gentile woman recognizes who Jesus is and addresses him accordingly. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away. So this woman's coming to him. And it's not just once. She's begging and begging and begging. And the disciples are in the same mindset they were back with the 5,000. Send them away. Okay? And so he answers to her, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. It's not just enough. In Mark's, it was a crumble. Jesus is saying an actual action. And she replies, yes, it is, Lord. How much gumption does she have to call out Jesus? Yes, it is, Lord. I think the reason is because she understands Jesus. She gets Jesus. He's just being honest. This is the way it is. I know sometimes honesty, it hurts, but sometimes we need honesty, right? And Jesus is being as honest as he can. Look, this is the deal. And she goes, you know what? I know there's more to it. Yes, it is, Lord. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. I love this because it's a breakthrough in the situation. If we're following the book of Mark, we're seeing as one flows to the next. We're seeing that people are missing it time and time again. And finally, someone gets it. Finally, someone goes after Jesus and pushes into him and says, you know what? I don't care because I know who you are. I know the God cares, not just for the Jews, but for the Gentiles too. Not just for the specific people of God that are born through Abraham's seed, but he cares for everyone that he created. And so she pushes him. She pushes against Jesus' words. And what does he say in return? Okay, so he says in Mark, he says this, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. Listen how Matthew puts it. Woman, I know it sounds rude. Woman? He said, woman, you have great faith. Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. Did he have to see the daughter? No. She pushed. And he says, woman, you have great faith. It's done. And I could just imagine the woman going out, the mom going out, and Jesus turning to his disciples and say, she gets it. Why can't you guys? She doesn't know me. She's never been around. She lives in an area that I went away to be alone. She gets it. Guys, you've been with me. This is like 2.5 years at this point, and they're not getting it. Yet she did. It says, your faith. And what's great, if you go through the Gospels, it's like only a couple times that Jesus uses this idea of you have great faith, and they're both with Gentiles. It's almost like he's saying, look, the Gentiles are getting it. Why can't you guys? And so it's this whole idea of the disciples are at this point, and they're at a wall. They're stuck. It's like they can't push any further. It's like they have this idea of who God is, and they can't get past that. Yet this woman who shouldn't have any idea of who God is, because she's a Gentile in a Gentile land, recognizes who Jesus is, and she pushes through that wall. And she has the breakthrough. And the disciples don't. Now, eventually we'll see the disciples get their breakthrough. But right now, they're stuck. They're stuck at that wall. So at this whole shooting thing, so the first 2 days, this is my experience. The first 2 days, great. I improved a lot because there was a lot to improve. And so on the third day, morning time came. I felt good. Everything was working out. My groupings were amazing. Had these great headshots. I was hitting from 15 yards back, hitting a headshot in this little cavity that they want you to hit in. I'm like, man, I'm doing really well. I'm going to ace that test. I go to lunch, come back, everything changes. It's like if there was a barn right there, I would have missed it. I mean, it was bad. And I couldn't figure it out. And I went home and I'm like, what is wrong with me? I was doing so well. And then all of a sudden, nothing. And so I get there the next morning, and then, they give you a lot of time to prepare for this little test. And so we had 2 hours to prepare for this test. And I'm just not feeling good. I'm not doing well. I'm missing the shots. And no matter where I'm at, I could be 3 yards away, and I'm not hitting it the way I want to. And, that's pretty close. Okay? And so, yeah. And so I'm like, I'm not doing well. And so I sat down, and I just thought, what is wrong with me? The test is literally in 5 minutes. And then the light bulb came on. Before any of this was happening, I would always lean into my stance. But something changed. I don't know what it was, but I started standing up. And that little thing changed me. Just that one little thing. So, yeah, it's not a big change, but it was just a slight change. And so I go, okay, I'm going to purposely lean like I usually do. And so I took the test thinking, remember to lean. I passed that test. I broke through that little wall. It wasn't a huge thing, but it was just enough to keep me from where I needed to be. And that's what happens with us with God. We tend to miss this simple truth about Jesus. Jesus wants us to have a breakthrough. Jesus wants us to get closer to him. He's not over there going, okay, let me build this wall. You guys knock it down. We build the wall, and Jesus is like, just push into me. We will break this wall, just like this woman did. There was a wall there, right? She was a Gentile. She's like, I don't care. Nothing's holding me back from Jesus. We need to get the same truth into our mind. If I'm going to have a breakthrough in my relationship with God, I need to start pushing into God. And not allowing my sin to get away, not allowing my embarrassment to get away, not allowing anything in my life to keep me from getting to Jesus. And we need to push through. Because that's what Jesus wants. He wants us there. Do you think Jesus was sitting there going, you know what, I really don't want to heal this woman's child? I don't think so, because that isn't the character of Jesus that we see throughout the Gospels. Instead, I think he's saying, this is the reality. What are you going to do with it? And she says, I'm going to push through it. because Jesus is more important than that wall. And so if we want to have breakthroughs in our lives, so often, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have, where it's like I have this sin that I've just been dealing with for years and years and years, and it's like it's not getting any better. Sometimes it feels like it's getting worse. Or I have this relationship that I'm like, I want it to be healed, I want it to be changed, but it just isn't getting better. We might want a breakthrough, but the things that are needed, Jesus, he calls this woman a dog. She could have said, you know what, forget you, Jesus, I'm out. I'm leaving. You call me a name. Instead, she pushed through. And we get to talk about her today because she pushed through. She didn't let something like where she was born mess with her. She didn't let words keep her from Jesus. But it's too often we do. And so if we want breakthroughs in our lives, then we need to get into the understanding, I got to push. I'm going to push more into God, not less. I'm going to go deeper into his word, not less. I'm going to go more into prayer, not less. I'm going to go more into worship, not less. If we want a breakthrough, that's what we need to do. Push further, deeper into God. Because if we don't, we're going to hit that wall and say, that's as far as I can go. And then we're going to wonder, why is sin still so prevalent in my life? Why do these relationships never seem to get healed? Why do I never see the work of God? It's not God's fault. It's because we didn't push. Because God's saying, come on. Come on. In the boat, when the disciples were out there struggling, this is Jesus meant to walk by them. But as soon as they cried out, he got in the boat. It's the same thing here. As soon as she's showed the faith, she says, your daughter is healed. That's how quick it was. How close are we to that breakthrough that we have just given up on? And God's like, you're so close. So close. Come on. A little bit more. And you got it. So this week, I have this challenge for you. It's very simple. I want you to go home. I want you to take a piece of paper and just write one thing on it that says what you're dealing with. What that thing that is keeping you, that wall, from having a breakthrough. It could be sin. It could be, relationships. It could be whatever that is. I don't know what it is. Whatever that is. I want you to write it down. Don't put your name on it. Because what I challenge you to do, and this is where the challenging part comes. Next week, I want you to come back. We're going to see who did their homework. I'm going to have a cork board out there. I just want you to pin it to the cork board. And this is the reason why. We are a family. Okay? If you have put your trust into Jesus, we are a family. We have been adopted into his family. We need to start praying for each other. Because you know what? I want breakthroughs in my life. And I want breakthroughs in your life. And I get excited when people have breakthroughs. And I hope you would be excited when I have breakthroughs or when someone else has breakthroughs. And so my challenge is that we would put those out. You don't have to put your name on it. Just put what you're struggling with so I can be praying for you. So I know this is where this person needs a breakthrough, God. I'm praying that they get it. And I want to be praying for each of you, that you would have breakthroughs in your relationships, in your sin, in whatever it is, that you would break through those things, that you would get closer to God. But I don't know what I don't know. And so if we have it out there, we can be praying for each other. We don't need to know who needs the breakthrough because God does. But I want to partner with you guys in your breakthroughs so that when you're on the other side of it, you can stand and say, this was where I was struggling. This is where I am now. This is what happened. This is the breakthrough. And I can go, yes. I can see you as one of those boys or that mother on the shooting range that went from almost killing my uncle to doing better than me. And I was excited. And I want to be excited for you. So that's the challenge this week. Pretty easy? Yeah. Yeah. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you that it's Father's Day and we can worship you as our Father. Father, as we bring this before you, I bring everyone here before you that they would be able to have breakthroughs today. That they would know that you love them enough, that you push further and further towards us, and that we would push further and further into you. So, Father, help us to do that. Help us to be able to break through the barriers that are there because we're allowing you to break through to us. So, Father, help us to do that. And, Father, I pray for everyone that would take this challenge, that we as a community would have compassion, that we'd have grace on them so that they can bear their struggles with us, so that we can partner with them to pray for them, to bring them before you, so that we can see greater barriers broken and greater things happen in our church, so that we can give more and more praise back to you and show people there is a God that is working in our midst. So, Father, I ask that all in your Son's name. Amen.